Chapter 4 of the Me Addiction is called Created for Community. We really emphasize in that chapter the idea that God himself is in community, Father, Son, Spirit, and he was in perfect community with his human beings before the Me Addiction, and that life is really lived best when it's lived in community. And community works best when we are me-free and get rid of that addiction. We want to encourage you in this chapter to live into community.
Chapter 4, Created for Community. This chapter really speaks to the idea that we were created to be in relationship with each other, that when we make decisions centered around ourselves, we isolate ourselves from other people rather than grow closer to them. That the whole idea of community is living together and learning to live in harmony with one another, and that we can't live apart and isolate ourselves and live on an island, so to speak, but we really do belong together, and that's the best way to live, is not apart, but together.
Well, as we move into chapter 4 of the book, we talk a lot about community and the idea that God was the first perfect community in perfect harmony. God, the Father, Son, and Spirit working together, and also with the first man and woman walking in perfect harmony with him. But it didn't take long for that to change, and we see that throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. And we want to read to you just one little clip out of the book, that another indication that there's something wrong is found throughout the New Testament. The church, or the body of Christ, has to be reminded and taught that they're to love one another. Now, you'd think it'd be automatic for people who were made in the image of God to love one another. But we don't naturally do that. Reg, want to share some thoughts on that?
I think this is the crux issue with Christian life today. You really see this in the church. We're called to be focused on loving other people, but our me addiction really focuses us on ourselves instead of on loving others. God's good goal was to produce relationship with Him first, and then loving relationships, serving relationships with others. And if you wanted to narrow down what's the big deal with sin, why is sin bad, why does sin inhibit our lives? It inhibits our ability to have a relationship with God and relationships with others, and we focus all of our attention, all of our desires on ourselves instead. And this is one of the most important chapters in the book for me personally as a pastor.
We are created for community, but how is that role modeled? You know, who is living that out? Who can I look up to and say, this is how you're supposed to, this is the way you're supposed to do it? And sometimes those role models and examples just aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've had generation after generation of folks that have been conveniently focusing faith and faith activities on themselves and on what their desires are and what their interests are, but we don't really see this outward extension of community to really affect the community where we live.
Well, the chapter for me was really powerful because it developed an argument in my mind for why you should be in church instead of just by yourself trying to follow Jesus. Without a faith community, you are automatically going to be focused on yourself. And why we should practice spiritual disciplines. The book brings this out because that focuses on God, and those are antidotes to the me addiction. That helps us resist that focus on ourselves.